CBS Sports welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
Well, the way they have talked, they feel like the snow will be here for most of the afternoon, although it's not going to be much heavier than it is right now. But the temperature 24, it feels like 14. Hugh Jackson, 1-29 as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He said, yes, it has been hard. He's been leaning on his faith. He's been leaning on the folks in the Browns front office and also his family members as well. Meanwhile, John Fox, well, this guy has had himself one heck of a career as a head football coach, not only with the Panthers, the Broncos, and now in his third season with the Chicago Bears. Bears won the toss. They deferred. Nugent will tee it up. Matthew Days is back deep to receive for the Cleveland Browns. You wouldn't know it, but he's standing inside the 5-yard line right now.
Take our word for it.
Yep. This is certainly not as bad as it was in Buffalo 2 weeks ago. So Nugent is ready to go. So are we. And the ball will be taken by Nate Orchard, one of the up men. And Orchard bounces his way toward the sidelines before he's taken down at the 23-yard line. Deon Bush makes the tackle for the Bears. All right, so our second straight look at DeShone Kizer. Kizer realizes that last week was not one of his best days. 9 passing touchdowns, 19 interceptions. He can run the ball, which now he feels like he should have run the ball a little bit more last week, particularly with a couple of those interceptions.
Yeah, you see it a lot with young quarterbacks. They certainly have, and he certainly has the skill set and the physical ability to play, but if you can cut back on your mistakes, the rest of your game exponentially gets better, and it's a hard lesson to learn for young quarterbacks.
Well, it gives your team a chance to win.
Here's Crowell. Crowell said he wanted the ball more this week, and he gets it on the first down and takes it up toward the 30-yard line. Let's take a look at the Browns offense. Bitonio and Zeitler are two guys that Hugh Jackson told us have really stood out this year, particularly with Joe Thomas being out on the offensive line. Crowell wanted the ball. He said that he met with Hugh Jackson, and Hugh Jackson said, guys, I've got to do a better job of keeping him in the rotation.
Well, this guy's averaging in the last 7 games almost 5.7 yards a carry. Why would you not feed this guy the football? It will do nothing but help your quarterback and your team in general.
On second down and 5, that was Coleman in motion. The handoff goes to Crowell, and Crowell has the first down as he bounces up to the 34. Let's take a look at the Bears defense. Akeem Hicks, we spoke with him on Friday. He did not make the Pro Bowl. He said it only lasted a day, the fact that he was snubbed, and it's happened before. He talked about Sam Acho and how good he has been filling in at the outside linebacker position. And they get Adrian Amos back today in the secondary, and they feel really good about their two safeties. On the 34-yard line on first down, 2 straight runs for Crowell.
Five down. Easy.
Josh Gordon is closest to us, covered by Mukamara. And the handoff to Crowell again. 3 straight runs, and he is wrapped up and taken down by Christian Jones, who's really stepped it up for the Bears.
Yeah, and the Bears know that Cleveland wants to run the football. They're walking the safety. The safety comes right down inside the box. They've got all these guys in here. They're daring Cleveland to throw the football, and Cleveland's not having it.
That's the old Bear 46 defense that Buddy Ryan made famous. Every team in the NFL runs it now, and the way to attack that, and DeShone Kizer did a great job. You want to run the ball weak against that 46 defense. He checked to it. Nice job by the young quarterback.
How important are his checkdowns and his developments?
Huge.
Crowell again, and he slips one tackler. That was Eddie Goldman. That eventually take it down, but did get a couple yards.
Yeah, you talk about a quarterback running checks and stuff, and we talk. Even Mitch Trubisky mentioned this. It's getting to the point for both these guys where they don't have to think about what their assignment is in this offense, and all they do is get their guys in, check the protections, check the personnel and formations, and then just make the reads. So many times you spend so much time thinking about what you're supposed to be doing as a player, you don't actually get to play football.
Well, it'll be third down. You saw where they are, 33% on third down. They've got trips to the outside, including one of their tight ends. Kizer to throw, steps up in the pocket, throws to the right for Gordon, and he can't hang on. Covered by Eddie Jackson. Oh, that may have been a spot where Kaiser could have run for the first down.
You're 100% right, Tom. You know, when you look at it, it was straight man-to-man coverage across the board. The Bears secondary challenging the receivers of the Cleveland Browns, and there's nobody that has DeShone Kizer in man-to-man defense. They may be spying somebody on him if he does start getting run, but he should be able to make one guy miss. That would have been his best option there in 3rd and 4.
Flags go flying.
False start. Offense number 39.
Yeah, that's a good job by the
5-yard
Bears.
penalty. 4th down.
It's kind of meaningless in a point like this, but that's a nice job by the Bears. They've got something planned up front for a return, and they did a shift late inside, and one of the interior guys, as they started to check off and reassess their assignments in man blocking, they got a little jump and a little false start up front.
Well, it moves the ball back to the 36, where it'll be 4th down and about 9. Colquitt on the punt. Cohen says get away. It bounces at the 43. And then hits a Brown at the 41-yard line. It's Ricardo Lewis. And that's where the Bears will take over. Hope everybody's enjoying their Christmas Eve. It's the Bears and the Browns. We'll be back after this. Well, the Browns go down quietly in their first series of the afternoon, and now the Bears and Mitchell Trubisky will take over on 1st down. Trubisky's been better the last 3 weeks. In fact, 314 yards passing last week. He said he wants to throw the football more. All 3 of his interceptions came in the second half last week against the Lions. That was Bellamy in motion from the 31. The handoff goes to Howard, and Howard lowers his shoulder and gets up to the 34-yard line before Joe Schobert makes the tackle. Let's take a look at the Bears line. So they have switched around their offensive line. This is the way the offensive line kind of looks at the end of the game last week. Whitehair is usually the center. He moves over to the guard position. Deion Sims may be a factor because of the short passing game today that Trubisky told us about on Friday afternoon. It'll be 2nd down and 7 from the 34. Browns showing blitz from the outside. From the gun, Trubisky to throw for the first time, and he throws high, intended for Kendall Wright, and a flag comes in. Jabril Peppers was in on the coverage. There's Terry McCauley.
Pass interference. Defense number 22. Automatic 1st down.
Yeah, if Mitch Trubisky was an elite quarterback, you say he knew, he saw the interception, threw it over his head purposely, but right here, just grabs the outside arm, and that's Jabril Peppers. You see how he pulls his hands back. That's most guys. That's a dead giveaway.
That's not me.
It is a dead giveaway.
Yeah, Kendall Wright, too. 17 receptions over the last 2 weeks among the league leaders. He's going to be a big target for Mitch Trubisky today as well.
Bellamy in motion to the near side. And the handoff to Howard, and Howard is stood up by Carl Nassib. And he lost a couple yards on the play. Let's take a look at the lineup for the Browns. Well, yesterday Hugh Jackson told us about Trevon Coley and how impressed he was with the way he played last week, and they want him to step up more. Schobert's just been a tackling machine. He's among the top 5 in the National Football League the last couple of games. And Jamar Taylor, foot injury last week, didn't play basically except for special teams, but he's back out there for Hugh Jackson. Loss of 2 on the play. It'll be 2nd down and 12. Ball at the 40-yard line of Chicago. And Trubisky to throw, middle of the field. Pass is complete to Kendall Wright. And Wright gets up across the 45, close to the 48-yard line.
Good job by Trubisky. He looked very comfortable getting through his progression. Knew he had Kendall Wright right in front of him as his 3rd option. It worked out perfectly. Kendall Wright gave him a nice spot to put that football. Now they've got a 3rd and 5 to put themselves in a desirable situation.
And they bring Tariq Cohen in to join Howard. Howard's in the backfield. Cohen is part of that bunch formation. The 3 receivers on the near side. And Trubisky tries to avoid the blitz, but cannot do so. He is sacked and taken down by Justin Curry, who came blitzing in for the Browns.
Well, Justin Curry, great job. Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for Cleveland, known for a bunch of different exotic looks, and especially with a young quarterback and Mitchell Trubisky, he had no clue that Curry was coming clean. Very, very nice design of that blitz by Greg Williams and that defense.
O'Donnell on the punt. Peppers back deep to receive. He just wants a chance to return it, but the ball goes over his head, and it rolls into the end zone, which it didn't do last week against the Ravens. So he's probably happy about that. So, second possession for the Browns. Yeah, it's a day for the Hardy here in Chicago.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Low fares, no hidden fees. That's transparency. New York Life. With the right guidance, everyone can be good at life. And by the 2018 Ford F-150, it doesn't just raise the bar, it is the bar.
Well, before the Super Bowl era, these were two of the best teams in football, with the Bears winning 8 NFL championships across 5 decades, and the Browns claiming 4 titles, 3 in the 1950s. We were at their practice facility the other day. Beautiful statue of George Halas right outside, and plus different memorabilia when you walk into their lobby. This is a fan base that's longing for success, much like Cleveland is. This will be the second possession for the Browns after a 60-yard punt. The motion is Telfer, the tight end, and the pitch goes to Crowell. Crowell trying to find a little daylight, not much there. He's stopped by Jonathan Bullard. Friday and Saturday, CBS features some of the top teams in the country. 7th-ranked Kentucky, 4th-ranked Duke, and the #1 team in the nation, Jay Wright's Villanova Wildcats. 2 days of outstanding basketball on CBS. Be at the Fieldhouse on Butler, on the campus of Butler next week for Villanova and the Bulldogs. That'll be a tremendous atmosphere. Gain of 2. You guys think Crowell's message was heard this week? Just
Seems
keeps
to
carrying.
be, yes.
So, yeah.
Whereas Njoku, who didn't get a reception last week, he's able to scamper for a first down.
There's no question that both these teams pride themselves, particularly the Browns, but the Bears as well, on their ability to stop the run, and they do a nice job of it, and it's going to force both these young quarterbacks. You got to think both these defenses are in the same position. They want to force a young quarterback to make throws he's not sure about and to see things he's not sure about.
And the one thing DeShone Kizer told us in our meeting yesterday was that this Bears defense, John Fox, always known for great defensive teams, but very, very simple in their philosophy. Kizer said he's going to have access against this defense. It means it's pretty clean to make his decisions and his reads.
Crowell bumped into Kizer as he took that handoff, and Akeem Hicks is able to take him down. No gain on the play. Well, Hugh Jackson certainly did not expect to be 1-29 with the Cleveland Browns, but he certainly likes Christmas Eve. 2-0 as a head coach, 0-33 on every other day.
Well, it speaks well for his chances today, I guess, right? I mean, and let's face it, I mean, if you got to think, given the way the season has gone for these two teams, this is Cleveland's best chance in the last 2 weeks to get a victory. They play Jacksonville, who's deep in the playoff hunt next week.
On second down, Kizer to throw to the right side, broke it up. Beautiful breakup by Kyle Fuller, who certainly looks like he's back to 100% with that bum knee. 17 pass deflections for Fuller.
Yeah, I was wrong. I said Jacksonville, and Steve Berline about put me in a headlock. It's Pittsburgh they play next week.
We would have gotten you there.
Yeah, you left me hanging. But I was. That's the thing. This is a game that Cleveland's got to think, and the guys tell us they believe they can win every game. That's the way players think, and today's no exception.
On 3rd down and 10, conservative, they go to Duke Jackson, and Jackson's able to get just a couple of yards. Duke Johnson.
Well, and that shows right there. I think with these field conditions and the past history of his young quarterback, DeShone Kizer, Hugh Jackson right there choosing to play it close to the vest, thinking about the play action or the field position part of this game, trying to pin Chicago back at their end of the field instead of making a mistake and maybe giving them a short field.
Cohen back deep to receive, stands at his 26. Plenty of time in the play clock as Colquitt is ready to punt for the second time. This time it's a different punt. It is a high, booming kick, and Cohen takes it at the 15. He did not ask for a fair catch, and he is lightning in a bottle. Along the sidelines, he bumps out of bounds. I don't know how he was able to even start himself on that.
Well, one reason he was able to one reason he was able to do it is because he's courageous.
Well, he certainly has been a huge bright spot. 28-yard return. Excellent field position for the Bears. Second possession for the Bears. It begins at the 43 of Chicago. Trubisky has plenty of time, and he's got Deion Sims along the sideline.
Beautiful job by the play-action bootleg fake going to the left side. Trubisky, he drew the full Cleveland Browns defense that way. You're going to see everybody just kind of sliding over to the left side, the left side of the offense for the Bears. They completely leave Sims uncovered over the top. Trubisky didn't panic. Nice, smooth, accurate throw. Big gain for the Bears.
Gain of 24 yards from the 33, and now a fumble as Trubisky lost it and is able to recover it.
Yeah, Trubisky was going to hand this off, and it came out of his hand right into Howard. It looked like a pitch play, but the handling of the football, watch, he's going to turn around, and this ball's just going to pop out of his hand. And he never got it to Howard, and that's...
You know, the football, as you know, see, the football does freeze if it's sitting out there too long, and it makes that ball slip. But I mean, you don't think about that in the snow. I would prefer snow as opposed to rain. But the cold football is very slick because it kind of freezes on the outside.
Loss of 4, second down at 14. Off the fake, Trubisky sets up in the pocket. Pocket's collapsing, he gets away, and he's going to run close to the first down. And the Browns better be careful because Nassib could have got called for something because Trubisky was sliding down.
I agree that nobody threw a flag, but that should not have been a... Nassib right here is going to end up chasing Trubisky, and he's going to end up piling on top of him, and that's... when the quarterback goes feet first, that's a no-no.
Well, that was Myles Garrett in the backfield that really should have made the play on the sack in the backfield to show that the athletic ability of Trubisky, but Myles Garrett... First pick in the draft this year, very athletic. You'd like to think he'd normally make that play.
Battling a sore ankle for most of this year. It'll be third down at 6 from the 29. Trubisky has time again, pumps. He can run it for the first down. If he can get away from Nassib, he does. He has the first down out of bounds inside the 20-yard line. He's down to the 17-yard line.
It's a fine line between having a quarterback who runs a lot and a quarterback who picks his spots and can run a lot. And Trubisky in the last 2 plays has absolutely crushed the Browns defense. You don't think of him as a guy who's going to do this type of thing. So when a quarterback like Trubisky, who can throw and throw accurately, takes off and runs, defensive coordinators are going nuts on the sideline because there is no defense for that.
Well, it's a gain of 12. 36 rushes this year for Trubisky. Howard is back in. In motion is Daniel Brown, the tight ends. On first down, here's Howard. Howard trying to get to the edge and is shoved out of bounds by Myles Garrett and Burgess.
Yeah, Steve Berline, you know this. I mean, it's defensive coordinators, they hate quarterbacks who can run. They kind of like quarterbacks who do run because then you can make a plan for it.
It's part of the game plan, no doubt about it. But when I see Mitchell Trubisky, the way he moves and the way he's going through, this is my first time of being able to see him up close here. He has a lot of mannerisms of like an Aaron Rodgers, who I'm not comparing him to Aaron Rodgers. Nobody go crazy here on me. But what I'm saying is the way he gets through his progressions, and then if he doesn't see it, doesn't like it, he tucks it and goes. That's the way Aaron Rodgers breaks a lot of defensive backs as well.
From the 17-yard line, here's Howard again. And Howard, Danny Shelton takes him down.
Yeah, you talk about, so now that Steve Berline has said Mitch Trubisky is going to be just as good as, we'll go to Jordan Howard.
After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Defense number 94. Half minutes to go.
1,300 yards last week. First Bears player with 1,000 yards rushing in each of his 2 seasons. Jordan Howard, pretty special.
With all the snow out there, we didn't even see the flag go down.
Flag got tucked under a snow pile.
That's number 94's first down, counting towards disqualification.
Well, we saw Nassib pile on Trubisky after the long run, and now he's coming off saying, I didn't think I did anything that bad. I didn't notice it after the play was over. He might have said, it might have been verbal instead of physical, but
no, couldn't have been verbal. He's looking baffled. He doesn't know what the heck the issue was there.
Well, it'll move the football to the 9, the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It's his first one. You heard that Terry McAulay say that.
Yeah, we asked the guys in our truck, they don't have a shot of that penalty as well, so we are baffled by that personal foul.
First and goal from the 9. And here's Cohen. And Cohen right up the middle and down close to the 1-yard line. Peppers tripped him up. Schobert cleaned him up.
This guy, Tariq Cohen, now, he is fun to watch. He's one of those guys, you can just feel, when he gets the football, you can feel everybody in the stadium kind of hold their breath because he is just so quick and so explosive. It's a challenge for an offensive coordinator like Dowell Loggins for the Chicago Bears to find ways to get him the football.
Yeah, John Fox told us on Friday they love what his ceiling is. He's out. Howard is in. Actually, Cohen is out as a receiver to the far side. On second and goal from the 3. Trubisky, he's going to keep it himself, and he slides down to the 1-yard line.
You know what that was? That was the Baltimore Ravens last week against the Cleveland Browns. Caught him with a quarterback draw. The Bears trying to see if they could find a way to maybe capitalize on the same type of play, but very disciplined by the Cleveland Browns linebackers right there.
Nassib is back in. Danny Shelton made that tackle. He did an excellent job on Whitehair, the guard, to stay him upright and then slide over to make that tackle. The third and goal from just inside the 2-yard line, closer to the 1. High formation. Brown in motion. The handoff to Howard, and Howard right through the middle into the end zone. Touchdown, Chicago. Number 8 for Jordan Howard.
Well, for a shuffled offensive line, the Chicago Bears do an outstanding job on this red zone run. Howard coming right up over the 2 guards in the center, and that's just great offensive line play when you can do that on a goal line stand for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, we saw what the Cleveland Browns did last week to the Baltimore Ravens in a similar situation. Got them to a 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, and really very stout. They're very stout against the run, but right there, like you said, Steve Tasker, that was a fantastic job by the offensive line.
Yeah, now Bobby Massey, the right tackle, staying down, and that's kind of an issue. We had a long conversation, Steve Berline and I, about their offensive line. They've got 2 rookies backing up, Cameron Lee and Brandon Green. Brandon Green just activated off their practice squad, and you'll see here, that's
man, that's painful.
Yeah, that's always something the guys are fearful of.
Yeah, O-lineman's biggest fear, getting rolled up on like that. And we were talking about it before the game because the Bears only had 1 active backup offensive lineman that we knew of. We found out about Brandon Green. They have 2, both untested rookies are backing up right now.
Yeah, Compton's out with a concussion. Sitton is out with an ankle injury that he sustains.
Well, he's walking off. You can tell he's trying to literally shake it off. We'll see if he can.
Well, good for him.
I'm telling you what, that looked like, I mean, football players know it's a tib fib. I mean, it looked like a classic roll-up tib fib break, but yeah, he's walking off. That's exactly the kind of thing that a lot of people who don't watch football, they go, why doesn't that happen constantly?
It's a good point.
And it is a fear for offensive linemen down there.
And it generally happens when you're a kid playing football. Coaches say keep your feet moving. Always keep your feet moving. A lot of times when players get rolled up on us because their feet are planted and they're standing there engaged with somebody, it's really hard to do. But the more your feet are moving, the more active they are, the less the chance of being rolled up on like that. John Fox knows the one spot that he cannot afford to lose anybody today is that offensive line. So he's going to be very interested to see whether Massey's going to be able to come back or not.
Well, here's Nugent on for the point after. Nugent is the 3rd kicker used this year for the Chicago Bears. He did an excellent job with the Cowboys this year. And these extra points are going to be factors here this afternoon. It's a good snap and it's a good hold. It was deflected at the line by Nassib, and it's going to be no good. And the Bears will maintain a 6-0 lead. Hayes to be 6'7". This was a 9-play, 57-yard drive capped by Jordan Howard's plunge into the end zone to give the Bears the lead.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. And by McDonald's. I'm loving it.
Think about that Jacksonville.
Well, maybe they can get these folks to move down from the top of the stadium where the snow looks like it's piling up. a little bit more. Here's Nugent to kick off after the missed point after. That was blocked by Nassib. Peppers will let that one go over his head and out of the back of the end zone. He better make sure he covers that up when it goes over his head. Here's the block by Nassib. He and Myles Garrett were both there. 6'7".
Go in low, time it, stand up, get a little penetration, and that's what it took.
Here's the reaction from John Fox. I know that Steve Berline, you've been friends with John Fox for a long time. He was happy to see you the other day, and he seemed to be in great spirits despite the 4-10 record.
Well, you know, John Fox has seen it all. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, hasn't won one yet as a head coach, but he's won 6 division titles. He's about seen it all in his head coaching career, 15 years. Not a lot to get him rattled.
On first down, Kaiser is not going to throw, he's going to run, and he slides forward. Eddie Jackson will be credited with the tackle. He got a couple of yards.
Yeah, great job by the Bears defense. They see this bootleg coming. They cover all their zones and pick up the guys trying to sneak out into the route. And as soon as Kaiser got his eyes around, he knew he had nowhere to throw that football. Decided very early. It was a smart move. But in this conditions, you would think a guy like Kaiser would have gotten 4 or 5 yards, but he just couldn't get there fast enough.
Right, and you remember the comment he made to us yesterday was he's just trying to eliminate the negative plays.
That's
he
right.
wants to have either positive plays or neutral plays, plays that don't hurt the team.
So that was one of the big things that Hugh Jackson talked to him about this week. He's under pressure, and he wobbles that one. It was nearly intercepted. Sam Acho was all over him, and then Adrian Amos nearly intercepted the football.
That's one that Isaiah Crowell does not want thrown to him. It was a bad decision. DeShone Kizer right there. I don't think there was any real threat of this ball being intercepted the way it was thrown, but you're running your running back into a headache right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a smart decision. That ball should be thrown away in that situation.
This will be the third opportunity on third down. They're 0 for 2 so far. Third down and 8. 3 receivers to the near side. Kaiser's looking to the near side for Gordon, and it'll be incomplete. Amukamara came up with it out of bounds, and it'll be 4th down.
The Bears came with some pressure on there. DeShone Kizer, great job standing in the pocket, taking a shot right in the ribs. You see, coming right in the middle, Danny Trevathan, he's not the one that hit him, but he was the pressure coming up on the blitz. The rib shot to DeShone Kizer, no doubt that ball was out of bounds, but Kizer, that's what affected the throw, the follow-through on that throw.
Robertson Harris was the guy that got to him. This will be the 3rd punt for Colquitt. His first 2, a little more than 40 yards. And this one they kick away from Cohen. And it goes inside the 20, and he's just going to fall on top of it inside the 15-yard line. Well, this being Christmas Eve, we thought we'd give you an idea of what the Bears are looking for Christmas. I think some of them are obvious. Continue to develop Trubisky because the last 3 weeks he's been very good completion percentage-wise. Get wide receivers healthy or draft one high. Kevin White, Cam Meredith, they've been out. Obviously, they're big pieces to this puzzle. And get some wins in the division. They're beating up on the North in the AFC.
Yeah, you'd like to see, this is a team poised with Trubisky developing and some of the young players on their offense. You know, John Fox can do it. This is a team that can go from losing double-digit games to winning double-digit games and being a contender for their division title, no question. But that's the goal, and I think it's in the not-too-distant future as well.
Bellamy goes in motion just to pick up Peppers, and Howard runs it and gets about 4 yards to the 19-yard line. And that will be the final play of the first quarter. So the end of the first quarter, the Bears 6, the Browns nothing. We'll return to Chicago after these messages. You're watching the NFL on CBS. We get set to begin the second quarter. The Bears are on top 6-0. They're facing a 2nd down and 6. They scored on their last possession on a touchdown run by Jordan Howard. DeShone Kizer. Hugh Jackson told us yesterday, I said, are you doing more teaching this year on the sidelines? He goes, oh, yeah. He said, I'm doing teaching all the time on the sidelines. From the 19-yard line on 2nd down. Cohen is stretched out to the near side as a receiver. He'll take the football from Trubisky, and he is ripped down by Jason McCourty. That was read beautifully by McCourty.
Well, it was a perfect coverage. You saw the safety come flying out of there right before the snap. They're taking advantage of a young quarterback and his indecision there. Mitchell Trubisky thought that he had a 3-deep look where he was going to have a corner playing soft. At the last minute, they backed that into a 2-deep look, and that meant the corner's playing much tighter, and he read it very clear. It was an easy read for the corner, not having to worry about a guy running past him.
Cohen remains in the game. He's not in the backfield, obviously. He's split off to the near side. As the Browns show blitz, now they pull back.
They're coming.
Kirksey and Burgess who are coming. And Trubisky bumps away from one, wobbles it to the right, and it's covered beautifully by the Browns secondary.
Yeah, you got to like what Trubisky did there. No question. He didn't get the first down, but Trubisky saw the blitz coming. He knew he got picked up, stepped up hard into the pocket, and you'll see both these guys coming up inside. He saw it pre-snap. The Bears do a nice job. They leave the last guy unblocked outside, and Trubisky steps up inside. Just couldn't get enough for the first down. Bellamy, you know, when Trubisky stepped up, Bellamy had too much time to come back too far past the sticks, and they went from a first down to a fourth down.
Well, that's Greg Williams designing the right kind of a blitz, and maybe Trubisky is a young quarterback not getting the protection set properly. That's why there was a free man coming.
Looks like we got a false start on the Bears.
Offense number 27. 5-yard penalty, fourth down.
Bears had a lot of penalties last week. In fact, they had 13 penalties for 97 yards. And don't think it didn't affect the outcome of that game against the Lions.
Oh, it definitely did. When you think of some of the third down penalties, Prince Amukamara, excuse me, that's a mouthful, but Prince Amukamara had a big one. 3rd and 8, had Detroit backed up in their own end of the field. Holding call gives Detroit a first down. They end up going down and scoring on that drive.
Well, it moves Peppers up as O'Donnell's punt. Last one was 60 yards. Peppers waiting for this one, anxiously waiting for this one. And then he is tripped up close to the 43-yard line. Kwiatkowski makes the tackle. Kaiser's coming back on.
Walter Payton, Mike Ditka, hungry Chicago, finally champions on this January day in New Orleans. Draw to Biner. Ernest Biner. Fumble the ball, and Denver has recovered. Oh, my.
One of the great sayings of all time, oh my. Known to Dick Enberg, the legendary voice, passed away this past week at his home in San Diego at the age of 82. Won 13 Sports Emmy Awards. Was honored by the Hall of Fame with the Ford C. Frick Award in 2015. Was an amazing man. I got the chance to know him pretty well during the baseball season because he was the voice of the Padres the last several years. Drove him back and forth from our stadium in Philadelphia to his hotel in Philadelphia. And I remember one time there was a car that cut us off at one point. He was in the front seat, and all of a sudden he went, oh my, just like that. Just a tremendous man, and really as versatile a voice as I think we've met in the sports worlds.
It was a big moment if Dick Enberg was calling.
Yeah, Dick Enberg, Merlin Olsen, when he came over to CBS with Dan Dierdorf. There's Coleman in motion on 2nd down. Kaiser, middle of the field, deflected, incomplete. Kyle Fuller breaks it up for the 2nd time today.
DeShone Kizer told us he wanted to try to find ways to get the football to Josh Gordon. Right there, Fuller does a nice job of anticipating the break and sitting down on it. You know, the receiver has the advantage in conditions like this because he knows where he's going. But Fuller was not afraid of Gordon running past him. He sat down on that thing and was ready to make the break. Nice play.
So now a 3rd down and 8. Kaiser is 1 of 6 so far. Gordon has been targeted a couple times, but only Njoku has made a reception for Cleveland. Duke Johnson is in the game along with Crowell. Kaiser's in trouble, and as he's falling down, he throws it away. It'll be incomplete. Kwiatkowski, you want to talk about a guy that's really come on? He was the guy pressuring him.
No doubt about it. Kwiatkowski makes that play for the Bears. He's going to come all the way from here, right through untouched, and Kaiser sees him immediately. And that Kaiser's going to go off and be bummed out that they didn't make that play or didn't have a chance to throw it. That's not a bad play for the Cleveland Browns. We've seen DeShone Kizer try and make stuff happen. His athletic ability gives him a chance to do that. He's done that just too many times. And in that situation, hey, punt it away and let's see what they can do. That was not a bad play for DeShone Kizer. Great play for Kwiatkowski.
Colquitt hits it over the head of Cohen. It bounces at the 6 and then spins along the goal line and finally through. It'll be a touchback. Well, it did not take a Cleveland Browns bounce.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Lowe's. Hurry in today for huge savings on all things winter. Honda. Hurry into the Happy Honda Day sales event today. And by Forever Mart. Discover the Forever Mart Tribute Collection at forevermart.com.
Browns decided to go with Myles Garrett as their first overall pick in this past year's draft. He's been banged up this year, but I think they love what his ceiling will be. So they passed on Trubisky, who's an Ohio kid. Trubisky said he was a fan of the Browns, but he wasn't an overwhelming fan of the Browns. He said he's got 20 family members who are here for this game. He said, but I would normally have about 20 family members here, so it's not because we're playing Cleveland. He zips that one beautifully to Bellamy, and Bellamy's up across the 45 to the 48-yard line. Schobert makes the tackle, and that's a big gain on first down.
Now, this is what you're looking for out of a young quarterback. Now, obviously, the protection was fantastic, but watch how Trubisky drops back and scans the field and waits, gets through his progression, looks to his left. His feet are in great position. He feels the route coming in from the backside, and then delivers a strike. Very accurate. We were talking about that during the break. That's the difference between these two quarterbacks right now. Trubisky, accurate. DeShone Kizer, not there yet.
5 for 5, 63 yards to throw again. Pressure's coming from Orchard. He has some time. Now he's going to run it to the near side.
Now, who did that remind you of right there? Yeah, tell me. Okay.
You say it. You say
Mitch
it.
Trubisky is going to be the next Aaron Rodgers. You said it. I get it.
It reminds me of that type of ability. He's looking through all of his reads. He's buying extra time, and if it's not there, okay, I'll just run over here. I'll pick up 7 yards.
Right.
It looks like that's what Rodgers does.
As a young quarterback right now, Mitch Trubisky is as far along as anybody in that draft class.
And one thing that John Fox told us the other day, and he has 89 total yards, the Browns have 40. He said, let's take into account he only played 13 games in college. So he's got a very limited experience so far game-wise. We got movement everywhere.
One of the
False
things.
start. Offense number 79. 5-yard penalty. Second down.
One of the things that kind of went under the radar is Bobby Massey's back in the game for Chicago, so he kind of shook that early leg injury on when he got rolled up, and now you see Soule has gone back to left guard.
Yeah, they've been moving the offensive linemen around for John Fox with the injury to Sitton, the injury to Compton. Whitehair is probably their most versatile. He's normally the center. He's playing guard today. There's a second down at 9 after the penalty. Cohen in the backfield. Trubisky to throw. Pressure's coming. Throws it to the right. That's his first incompletion. Let's go to an update with JB in New York at the Buffalo game.
Nate Burleson, can you believe it? I can't believe it, but he did come into this game. Tom Brady had 4 picks within 3 games, and this is number 5 right here. Jordan Poyer reads his eyes, jumps the route. That's a pick 6. 10-3 Buffalo Bills over the Pats.
Tom McCarthy, Steve Burline, and Steve Tasker.
All right, JB, thank you. As we take a look at the wild card in the AFC, Baltimore certainly helped its cause with a victory yesterday.
No doubt.
Buffalo wraps it up next week against Miami, but first they got to get through New England, and Trubisky is sandwiched. Myles Garrett, James Burgess. There were a lot of Browns who were in the mix.
So this is Greg Williams at his finest here. The Bears as a whole had no idea what to do with this one. You had guys coming free everywhere.
Well, Garrett lined up inside over the nose guard and came off a stunt, and that was just well done. Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, knows that that's going to be the crucial element to their defense today. Their secondary has struggled all year, but up front, they're pretty salty, and that's where they have to lean on their defensive scheme.
Well, it's a loss of 8. It'll be 4th down at 18, so the penalty plus the sack. And here's Peppers. And that that ball goes out of bounds, so Peppers does not get a chance to return that one. It'll be spotted just outside the 20-yard line. So that's where the Browns will begin when we return. Well, some people like the snow more than others. 6-0 Chicago. Coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report, join JB, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach Cower for all the latest NFL scores and highlights. That's all coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report. Oh, it's Steve Berline and Steve Tasker. I'm Tom McCarthy. Hope everybody's enjoying Christmas Eve, wherever it is that they are. Here's Crowell on first down. Crowell gets a couple of yards. Eddie Goldman makes the tackle. All right, so we talked about what the Bears want for Christmas. How about the Browns? Don't start 0-14 again next year. I think everybody in Cleveland would like that. A dynamic draft under John Dorsey. 2 potential top 5 picks because they have the Texans pick. And then Josh Gordon for a full, healthy season.
Yep, and all the draft is going to be so key as well. They've got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds. So, you know, Josh Gordon, we all know they need him to step up and handle himself and be on the football field next year. But the draft under Dorsey, that's going to be key for them to keep building on this young team.
On 2nd and 7, here's Crowell again. Crowell is able to barrel his way forward. He'll be about a yard shy of the first down.
And unfortunately, in some ways, even though they have all that draft capital to do the Browns, it also means this. They're probably going to be a very young team next year as well. And all that comes with that. And that doesn't mean they can't be improved, which they will be, I believe. But it does mean they're still uphill. It's an uphill climb for them.
But they do have cap space as well.
Right.
So the rookies aren't going to take up a lot of your cap space. You can go out and find 1 or 2 of those impact veteran players as well, which I'm sure John Dorsey has a short list of the guys he wants most.
Play clock down to 5. Kaiser adjusts, hands the ball off to Crowell on 3rd and 1, and he gets to the first down marker, and it's all going to depend on the spots.
Yeah, the near side official seems to have enough for the first down. The far side, maybe not.
But they've already signaled.
Yep,
and
first
they're going
down.
to move the chains.
So that's their first 3rd down conversion.
To get
first down, and they're on 31.
Yeah.
I think Crowell did get past the 31.
Yes, he did.
So it'll be first down. Well, we mentioned that Crowell was very vocal this past week about not carrying the ball that often last week after a 59-yard run. He was also not happy that Hugh Jackson said, listen, anybody could have run the ball 59 yards with the opening that the offensive line gave him. Pass is complete.
I'll tell you, he said that, and it didn't go over that great.
No.
And it was a little something he didn't mean anything by, but it was like, well, what do you know.
Well, I was impressed by Crowell when we talked to him. I mean, he was definitely upset about that comment and about the fact that he was not used as much as he felt that he should have been. And quite honestly, I think we all agree on that as well when you look back at how it affects the quarterback especially. But I think Isaiah Crowell handled it properly. He didn't make a big stink about it. He made it very clear what he felt, and today we're seeing the benefits of that.
He ran only 7 times after that 59-yard run. On 2nd down here, he's about a half a yard shy. Trevathan makes the tackle.
You know, we talked to Crowell, as you mentioned, and I think the interesting thing, and people don't really realize, he said, hey, I picked up the phone, I called Hugh. I said, I want to talk to you about it. And to have a guy who's mature enough to walk into the coach's office and say, you know, and just talk to him man to man, and I think Hugh Jackson appreciated it as well. And I think when that got around the locker room, I think it shows players how to act inside a professional atmosphere. And this is a young Browns team who I think a lot of young players could take a cue from that. If you're not happy, you don't have to make a stink. You don't have to talk to reporters. Talk to your head coach. And I think Crowell, you got to commend him for the way he handled that.
He's out. Duke Johnson's in. Passes complete to the near side to Rashard Higgins. It'll be a short gain as Callahan makes the tackle. Gain of 3. Hugh Jackson, who was 8-8 as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders back in 2011, said he used to read about guys that got off to starts like he's gotten off to with the Cleveland Browns. Never expected he'd be one of those guys. I guess nobody does. DeValve in motion. Kaiser quickly to DeValve. It'll be another short gain before he's knocked out of bounds by Adrian Amos.
Yeah, nice break. It looks to me as though this Chicago Bears defense is not afraid of these Cleveland Browns receivers or passing game. They're challenging every route. And I think what Hugh Jackson's got to do at some point, he's got to open it up a little bit, let DeShone Kizer push the ball up the field a little bit to show this Chicago Bears team that they're not afraid to take a shot up the field.
I don't think you do it here on 3rd and 3, but I think if you can stay on the field right here and convert this, it's about time for a double move.
4 receivers. Kizer dumps it off to Johnson out of the backfield, and he's got a first down, shoved out of bounds by Kwiatkowski.
And this is now the Browns here late in the second quarter. Now they've started to do exactly what they need to do. Find a way to convert on 3rd down, be successful enough on 1st and 2nd to stay on the football field. And that's one of the things that they've struggled with. Even when they have played well, that's really what they've been able to do. It's been even in the red zone when they've had success, they haven't been able to finish it off. But this is the kind of drive that gives a team confidence.
Duke Johnson, the leading receiver for the Browns this year. On 1st down, Kizer steps up in the pocket, dumps it off. And he has Gordon his first reception of the day. It's a gain of close to 10. Kwiatkowski and Fuller in on the tackle. It'll be about a 9-yard gain. It'll be 2nd down and 1.
Really nice job by Josh Gordon. You know, the receivers have to be on the same page as the quarterback. Watch, Gordon's coming across the field. He realizes it's zone defense. He snaps it off, sits down right there, shows DeShone Kizer his numbers, and he's got a nice, clean, good, solid pickup on 1st down.
Turned out to be a solid drive. This is the 10th play of the drive on 2nd down. Johnson with the first down. And Johnson gets inside the 35-yard line. Kwiatkowski takes him down.
One of the things about this offense that has really been a boost for them is those 2 guards and center down inside. They went out and signed J.C. Tretter from Green Bay. They got Kevin Zeitler over from Cincinnati. And then, of course, Joel Bitonio, who has really developed, 2nd-round draft pick by Cleveland back in 14. Those 3 guys down inside have really been the anchor of this offense and given them a chance.
Yeah, Bitonio, alternate for the Pro Bowl this year, but those 3 guys inside, Hugh Jackson feels like they match up with anybody in the NFL.
Crowell back in. He'll take the handoff, the 11th play of this drive, and he bounces down close to the 30-yard line. In fact, he got inside the 30 on that 2nd effort.
Talk about it, you can see it right there. The running game is successful. They run it inside the tackles, down inside where those 3 guys are. And their ability to, you'll see they get right out on the 2nd level, onto the linebackers. Zeitler up there, and then they get a little help, of course, also from the wide receiving corps coming down inside. Those guys down inside, they're big, heavy guys, but they're also quick-footed and light-footed. They can move around, step to one guy to help, then step up to a linebacker, shift their attention quickly. Really intelligent guys down inside.
Ball is spotted on the 28-yard line as we head toward the 2-minute warning. Kizer going for it all, and Fuller in the end zone with the interception for the Bears.
Just a bad decision again by DeShone Kizer. We talked about the double move. Here he made up his mind he was going to put it up, and a bad result one more time.
As we have reached the 2-minute warning.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Hanes with Fresh IQ Advanced Odor Protection Technology. And by Tostitos. Tostitos gives back to Salvation Army.
Well, there's been a lot of frustration for the Browns fans, not only this year, but the last several years. This was a frustrating play that leads to the interception, and the Bears getting the football up 6-0 with 1:57 to play in the first half. And Trubisky finds Bellamy, and they'll move that ball across the 35 to the 36-yard line. Bears have 3 timeouts up. They have plenty of time. They probably have to get a little deeper if they're thinking field goal because of the conditions.
Yes, no doubt. It's at least 5 to 7 yards closer than your normal range.
Benny Cunningham is in for the first time in the backfield. And Trubisky to Daniel Brown. All right, let's go back to this interception by Kizer.
Well, when this play is called by Hugh Jackson, it's a double move like Steve Tasker was talking about. You see Josh Gordon stutter his feet. The corner is still off. So the quarterback's responsibility now is to say, you know what, it's not there. I can't force it. I should take my tight end on the inside, or worst case scenario, you throw a throw where Josh Gordon can go back and get it on his back shoulder. Hugh Jackson's saying, you cannot throw that football. If we don't get the look we want, you can't throw it. DeShone Kizer just not learning that lesson.
His interception total continues to rise, 20 interceptions this year. Trubisky is not able to thread the needle. Jamar Taylor in on the coverage of Dontrell Inman. Well, there is DeShone Kizer, who wants to put himself in position to be the starter going into camp next year, but I think it's hard to see it right now.
Well, I will tell you this. I don't have a problem with him trying to give Josh Gordon a chance to make a play, but if you're going to do it, don't overthrow him by 15 yards. Put it in his back shoulder where Gordon can come back and get that football. I guarantee he'll make a play on that, and he'll have a better chance of coming down with it than the cornerback will. But you just don't throw it up for grabs.
Speaking of making a play, the Bears facing a 3rd and 10 from the 36-yard line. Pressure's coming. Trubisky has an open field to run for the first down, and he does. Out to midfield before Nacua takes him down.
Yeah, that was a hit by Nacua coming up, but Trubisky, this is exactly what he did in the first half. Man coverage, everybody's got their backs turned to him. He does exactly the right thing and gets down quick.
Gain of 14 yards. He has 6 carries for 40 yards. And on first down, the ball was deflected by Nassib at the line of scrimmage, so it'll be incomplete. Coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report, join JB, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach Cower for all the latest NFL scores and highlights. That's all coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report. A handful of games with playoff implications around the National Football League.
Yeah, about this time of year, that's pretty much what you're expecting, I think. And there's a lot of great. This thing could go in a lot of different ways. And
a handful of different ways going into the final week of the season. The personality of that final week will be dictated by today. Trubisky overthrows Kendall Wright. He actually had Bellamy go to the post. It'll be 2nd down, or should be 3rd down and 10.
Yeah, that was one that actually got away from Trubisky. It's the first pass I think that he's thrown that looks like now you see Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for Cleveland. But here Trubisky just he threw it kind of off his back foot. He's short-armed. I don't know what you want to say, but I think he did have a shot at Wright. Just did not throw that ball as confidently as he's been throwing the other ones.
That was a bad throw. That's the one thing about Trubisky that you notice when you watch him, when he throws it goes right where he wants it to, and that's one that I think did get away from him.
He started 5 of 5. He's 1 for 6 since. And from midfield, here comes the pressure, and man, oh man, is he nailed. Jamar Taylor came in on the blitz, and Joe Schobert was there to help him out.
So this is one of the looks that Greg Williams, he knows he's dealing with a young quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky had no idea where the pressure was coming from off his backside.
Charge timeout, Cleveland.
He has no idea it's coming back there. And
please set the game clock.
Of course, that's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, this is Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. His middle name's Pressure, and that he's bringing it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
His mentor was Buddy Ryan, and that's what the philosophy is when you do that defense.
And the one thing a quarterback needs to learn very early is if you have any doubt, but you have to know when you're hot and when you're not. Hot meaning there's a guy coming free that you don't have protected. If you do not have that awareness, bad things happen. Sack fumbles, interceptions. So quarterback has to always be certain where there's a free man coming from.
Here's Peppers. He is longing for a chance to provide a spark. He comes up, and he's going to get some room, trying to get to the edge, and he is thrown down at the 22-yard line. 31 seconds left in the first half. The Browns with the ball when we come back. 31 seconds to play here in the first half. Bears are on top 6-0. As poorly as the Browns seem to have played in this first half, they're only down by 6. They are not going to take a knee. Their last drive, 12 plays, 50 yards before the interception. They begin on their own 22. Trying to set up a little screen to Johnson. And Johnson has a blocker or two. And he has a first down.
Yeah, Cleveland will take that timeout now.
Second.
It's almost like clockwork. I'm disappointed in the Bears defense. Whenever an offense comes out on first down in a 2-minute situation and you're backed up at your end of the field with not great field, it's almost a guarantee it's going to be a draw play or a screen pass. every single time to start a drive off and to give them whatever they got there, 12 13 yards to start that drive. Now Cleveland is in, okay, we got 12 yards. We're now thinking we can maybe get into field goal range.
Yeah, now, do you still agree that they need an extra 5? Like we have 30 yards being the target, but maybe 35 with the weather.
The 30-yard line is the yard line. Now make it a 48-yard field goal. That's
anything
on the outer limit. You're not going to try you may try a 50, but it's less than a coin flip that you're making.
On first down from the 35-yard line, Kaiser throws low, incomplete to Coleman. I think he was just trying to throw that one away. That was going on.
There was nothing there. The Bears had that lockdown everywhere. Good job by DeShone Kizer getting rid of the football.
Josh Gordon was down inside the 10. I don't know if Kaiser could have hit him.
No, they were running right with him the whole way down the field. You see right there.
Oh yeah.
So it was there was nowhere to go with that football.
So second down from the 35-yard line. See, they threw it low to Coleman just to throw it away. There's Zane Gonzalez. 17 seconds left. Cleveland with one timeout left. Kaiser steps up, fires, and he has a man wide open. It's Ricardo Lewis, and Lewis has got to get out of bounds or get down.
He didn't get out of bounds.
He's their final timeout.
Yep, 4 seconds left.
Well, that gives him a chance to try a field goal, but as we said, this is right where we said at the 30-yard line. It's going to be a 48-yard attempt.
And it was a great job of seeing things by DeShone Kizer, and Lewis should have been trying to get out of bounds. But someone needed to be in the other. They got a timeout, get putting 2 seconds back on the clock. They should have been able to get a very quick timeout as soon as Lewis went down.
Thank you.
Well, Kaiser goes over to Hugh Jackson. 36-yard gain. They put 2 seconds back on the clock, as the guys said, and now they're going to bring Zane Gonzalez on. They're going to clean off some of the field. We learned a couple weeks ago in Buffalo, it has to be the players that are in the game that clean the field off. It cannot be players from the sidelines. His long for his career is 54. Yeah, this is going to be close to a 50-yard. Depends on where they decide to go down.
48-yarders. Well, Steve Tasker's right on it. That's exactly where they're going to be. It's 8 yards from where the ball is.
Hewlett is the long snapper. Colquitt is the holder. From inside the near hash mark, Zane Gonzalez trying to put the Browns on the board. Good snap, good hold. Kick is on its way, end over end, and it is good!
Oh, not by much.
By less than a yard.
You said the 30-yard line. It was a coin flip.
It was a coin flip. It was a good kick, good hold. He got enough on it. There's 1 second left on the clock with the 6 seconds. They can go for 5, but that was a very, very quality kick by Gonzalez.
Boy, how about how high Akeem Hicks got up, too, to nearly block that. Just over the crossbar. Zane Gonzalez makes it a 6-3 game. Well, that's a huge boost for the Browns,
no doubt,
considering where they've been in this first half.
Well, think about the previous drive, too. Again, we're not beating a dead horse here. DeShone Kizer on that interception the previous drive, it was 2nd and 4 on that play. If he just does a smart thing and protect the football, they were already almost in field goal range. They were almost at the 30-yard line there. They're probably going to get points on the last drive. We should at least have a shot at a tie ball game right now.
So a 48-yard field goal makes it 6-3. The Browns will kick it off with 1 second left. They'll just squib it along the ground, and it's picked up by one of the up men who will just take a knee. Looked like he had never done that before.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of the first half. It's 6-3 Chicago. Halftime is next after these first half highlights from Verizon and a word from your local station.
Want to stay up to date? Hey Siri, show me football scores.
Well, the football score here in Chicago, it's the Bears 6 and the Browns 3. A field goal by the Browns at the last minute pulled them within 3 points. So obviously these two quarterbacks are going to be tested in the second half, Steve Berline.
I think it's going to come down to which of these quarterbacks can make a play or not make a bad play. That's going to be the difference in this ball game. 6-3 right now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too is they got to protect him. And the quarterback can figure out the pressure packages and the schemes that these defenses are running against him will give the rest of his teammates a chance for him to get the ball to the playmakers, and whichever one of these young quarterbacks can get the ball out of his hands is going to win.
Speaking of pressure.
Yeah, you talk about pressure. I mean, that's been the key. Both these young quarterbacks having trouble identifying where the pressure is coming from, taking unnecessary hits, or at least not get rid of the football. Then, of course, both defenses stout against the run so far today. And here, DeShone Kizer not seeing the run through by Kwiatkowski. And then, of course, the ill-advised pass down the field trying to force it to Josh Gordon. That probably cost the Browns some points right there.
Yeah.
DeShone Kizer knows it. He got an earful from Hugh Jackson.
Yeah, and you talk about what's happened, with Trubisky. I mean, you see the issues. Both these quarterbacks are young, and each of them has different issues. Now, both of them have some of the same issues, but Trubisky is throwing the ball much more accurately than Kizer is. But both of them are struggling with that pressure package that the defenses are throwing at him.
Bears look at the football to begin the second half. This is Cunningham, and Cunningham rumbling across the 25 and the 30. And he's up close to the 40-yard line. Take a look at the first half statistics. Trubisky started 5 of 5, and then was 1 for his last 6. Overall, 57 passing yards for the Bears. 3 sacks already for the Cleveland Browns. They have certainly been active in this first half.
Yeah, and the Browns, we knew that coming in. That's one of the things they do well, and one of the reasons why the Bears are throwing quick screens and some short passes, and their plan was a little bit to get that ball out of Trubisky's hands a little faster, because the Browns are nothing if not exotic and pressure-packed up front, and their front 7 continues to show that.
By the way, Trubisky's been the leading rusher, 6 carries for 40 yards. Howard, 6 carries for 9 yards. A flag comes in. Ball is deflected and intercepted by Myles Garrett. And Garrett bouncing his way inside the 20-yard line. And he rumbles through the 5 and into the end zone. But there was a flag, as we mentioned.
I think they were lined up off sides with the Browns.
What a shame.
It looked like it's going to be against Cleveland.
I think it's going to come back.
Defense number 94. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Poor Carl Nassib.
Carl Nassib has not had a great day.
No.
And right here, he's lined up off sides. His head is over the line, and his hand was over the line. Sometimes they'll allow you that, to have your head a little bit over, but because the neutral zone is the length of the football. But his hand came down late, and that's when the flag came out.
Well, Nassib will check out.
That was an unbelievably athletic play by
it really was.
Myles Garrett. I mean, he looked like a kick returner. That 6'6".
Well, you don't listen.
Watch him here.
Yeah,
95, right?
You don't get to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft.
Breaks the tackle
because you're not an athlete, and he is.
Cohen had no chance trying to tackle him in the open field. That's Sims in motion on first down and 5 from the 45. Here's Howard, and Howard is hit in the backfield and taken down. James Burgess.
But those are the plays that drive coaches crazy, because they're pre-snap, just focus in being disciplined. And I'm not saying that Nassib's not a focused, disciplined player. Each of us during one point in our career made a dumb mistake at some point. Right there, that was just the worst time to do something so insignificant. It could cost your team a touchdown.
Second down, Cohen is in with Howard, and Howard will take the handoff. Boy, Howard is really having a tough road today. He only gets a couple of yards. It'll be third down and a little more than 5 as Nate Orchard makes the tackle.
Yeah, this Cleveland defense, and we've said it, we covered Cleveland last week, and their defensive front is hard to run against. Forget the fact that the team has struggled to win games. They do some things well. Greg Williams knows that he can give his team a chance to win games if they can just stop the run and bring enough pressure to confuse young quarterbacks and give them a chance.
What did Hugh Jackson say to us yesterday? He said he feels bad for Greg Williams because he has done such a good job this year. Brown showing blitz. Trubisky trying to dump it off to Cunningham. He will for the screen and a first down inside the 30-yard line. And he bounces is inside the 20 before Jabril Peppers will be taking him down, and it's time for a little snow angel.
Greg Williams told us his team is so susceptible and they see so many screen passes, and this caught
all the pressure's coming from the backside. Perfect timing for the screen. Look at all this green grass in front of the running back coming outside with the lineman in front of him. Perfect call by Dowell Loggins of the Chicago Bears, offensive coordinator. Boy, could not have had a better time for that call.
That screen pass turned upfield like a freight train running downhill. Boy, they had a lot of cars on that one.
That's how you stop a team from blitzing you, though, right there. That's execution was perfect.
Gain of 40 yards. On first down, Trubisky to Howard. Howard avoids one tackler, and he's into the open field, into the end zone for the second time today.
How do you think Ryan Nassib feels right now?
That is a microcosm of why a team gets to 0-14.
Exactly right.
2 touchdowns today for Howard. That a 16-yard run makes it 12-3 in favor of the Bears, and now Nugent, who missed the extra point earlier, will be on to try to convert the extra point here. Nugent's second point after attempt. This one is good. It's 13-3 Bears.
Yeah, you wonder how things snowball against you after that interception. This is the offside that turns in. The Browns, in this sequence of plays, goes in from leading the game by 4 points to losing by 10.
Cunningham screen pass sets up this run by Howard, a 16-yard scamper. His second touchdown of the afternoon. We've been watching Carl Nassib on the sidelines after that touchdown. I mean, he's beside himself. You can just see in his facial expression how slouched over he's been. Myles Garrett, who's sitting next to him without the helmet on, Nassib apologized to him. He said, "It's not your fault."
You can read his lips. Yeah. Myles Garrett, it's not your fault, man.
Browns will get a chance to return this one. It's days and days. Gives them good field position. This past week, a group of Bears players and staff joined members of the Chicago Police Department in a variety of charitable holiday events. Additionally, in a unified effort to help decrease violence in the city, all 5 of Chicago's professional sports teams joined together to form the Chicago Sports Alliance. This week, they announced that they will be donating $1 million in one-time grants to support 3 programs that will have the greatest impact in addressing the critical issues in the city. That's professional teams coming together. On first down from inside the 30-yard line, here's Crowell. And Crowell, 12 carries for 44 yards in the first half. There's a flag that came in late.
Offense number 70. 10-yard penalty. First down.
Well, Zeitler called for the penalty. I mean, these are the kicks in the gut right here.
This is where it all falls apart in normal situations with the Browns. Now, today, can somebody step up and make a play to just not let this thing snowball the wrong way? And usually you look to your quarterback, you look to your big-time playmaker. Josh Gordon would be the guy here, or Crowell or Duke. Somebody's got to make a play to get a first down and get him back into this ballgame.
Duke Johnson is in the ballgame in the backfield, and he'll take the handoff. I don't know if Kaiser wanted him to take the handoff there.
He didn't. You could tell Kaiser wanted to keep that football. You look, it's a read option, and you could tell he was trying to pull the ball out of there.
See how upset he is right there? Oh, now second down and 15.
You go to 37. Hey, ready. You guys go drive here. Drive.
Can hear Hicks sparking some things out on the defensive line for the Bears. Pressure's coming. Kaiser to the far sideline for DeValve, and he nearly made a circus catch. Kyle Fuller was there to break it up. How good of a day has Kyle Fuller had in the secondary for the Bears?
Great day. Kaiser checked the drive route, which is Josh Gordon coming underneath. That's who should have got the football there. Josh Gordon They were giving him the easy throw underneath. That would have been a circus catch by DeVal. But that right there, DeShone Kizer, if he hits Josh Gordon, it's an 8-yard pickup. Now you're looking at 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 15 now.
Sammy Coates is at the bottom of your screen. He's got the cleanest uniform out on the field. He hasn't played a whole lot today. It'll be 3rd down at 15 from the 24. And Kizer going to the far sideline for Gordon, who can't hang on. Broken up again by Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, that's a great pass defense by Fuller. He knows he's got some help over the top with a safety, so he can kind of be as aggressive as he wants to be. Whenever you're throwing to Josh Gordon, you know there's going to be some over-the-top help.
It's a drop.
And
yeah, you're right.
You're right.
Fuller didn't get a hand on that ball. That was a drop by Gordon. Somebody has to make that play.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's chronic. Somebody has got to do something to help the young quarterback out, or have the young quarterback help himself out by making the right decision and a great throw.
And right there, Kizer did it. He made a good throw, went to the right guy, and Gordon didn't make the catch.
This will be the 5th punt for Colquitt. Cohen comes running up. He fields it at the 34 and is immediately thrown down by Ricardo Lewis. Bears will go back out on offense when we return on top by 10.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Low fares, no hidden fees. That's transparency. State Farm, here to help life go right. And by Verizon, best gifts on the best network.
The windows of Macy's here in Chicago. If you look closely, you probably saw Steve Berline doing some last-minute shopping yesterday. As we are here on Christmas Eve in Chicago with the Bears on top 13-3. Cohen in the backfield. Trubisky, the throw on 1st down. Pass is caught by Inman. That's his first reception. All right, so last drive for the Bears. This is the way it started.
It started as bad as could possibly be right here. Watch what happens with Carl Nassib. He lined up offsides, gave back a big play. It was an interception for a touchdown by Myles Garrett. Instead, the Bears take advantage of the beautifully executed screen pass. Paid off at the end by Jordan Howard. The big touchdown run. That's how quickly things change.
Jordan Howard takes the handoff. How about Howard has 6 touchdown runs this year against the AFC North, 3 against everybody else. The Bears have run the table against the North so far this year.
They have really played well. If they were in that division, they're headed to the playoffs. I mean, they beat Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and are up 10 in the second half on Cleveland. And what can you say? You look at the stats, and they absolutely beat that division up.
Well, facing a 3rd down and 3. They need to get to the 44 for 1st down. Cunningham is back in the ball game. Howard checks out. Cohen checks out. Trubisky hitches to the left. They try the screen again and again. Cunningham's got blockers. And again he's in the open field and out of bounds. At the 35-yard line, Nacua makes the tackle for the Browns.
Well, it looks the same as from a screen pass standpoint, but watch Trubisky. Initially, he pumps to his left, and that gets the defense flowing left this time. It's a same net result, but a completely different screen pass set up, again, very well. The lineman out in front again. Great job of executing these screenplays from a timing standpoint.
Great job up front too. You saw Grassu, the center.
Yep.
You know, so many times those offensive linemen start looking at it. Grassu stops and turns back towards the line of scrimmage and picks off the pursuit. Great job on all counts by the Bears.
Gain of 22 yards off the play fake. Trubisky in the pocket, has some time, and now it's dragged down. Ogunjobi took him by the ankles and pulled him down. It'll be a loss of 5 on the play. It'll be 2nd down.
You know, Ogunjobi, 65 there. I think he surprised Trubisky. Trubisky thought he had stepped up past him, and Ogunjobi just got a hold of that right ankle.
That is the quintessential defensive tackle sack. Just kind of steamrolling back there, crawling on all fours and grabbing a shoelace. I mean, it's just
heck of an effort.
It's hard to get a sack down inside.
The rookie from Charlotte, Trubisky on 2nd down, middle of the field, passes completes. It'll be Kendall Wright, who didn't think he was touched, but Burgess did get him. He heard the whistle blow.
Yeah, this is a smart play by Trubisky, and it's also one of the things that is making him, give this organization a lot of hope. That's an accurate pass, and when your quarterback throws it right where he wants to throw it, those windows enlarge. He can throw things in there and get a completion.
That was the exact situation that the Browns had last time. When we said Josh Gordon should have got the ball underneath, get him in a 3rd and 8 situation, guess what Trubisky just did? He took about an 8-yard completion. Now they're looking at 3rd and 8 instead of 3rd and 13.
Kendall Wright in motion on 3rd down. Underneath, it's Kendall Wright. He's got the first down before Burgess takes him down with the help of Kirksey. They did say the underneath when we met with them the other day would probably be there against this Browns defense.
It comes across the formation out of the bunch, and this is the right throw, and a great job too by Wright, because you go over there and you see so many guys, they kind of want to avoid that collision with Kirksey. He's a guy underneath, and just stuck his foot in the ground, got the first down instead of trying to get to the sideline and turn up the field.
Kendall Wright over from the Titans, where he was their slot receiver, has basically taken on the same role here at the Bears. Trubisky told us on Friday that he does feel there's a chemistry that the two have put together the last several weeks. And now Howard trying to bounce outside, but Burgess wraps him up and takes him down. It'll be a loss of 3 on the play.
Yeah, with Kendall Wright, 3 catches today on the day, but he had 17 catches over the last 2 weeks prior to this game for 188 yards. Targeted. I mean, those 17 receptions, 3rd in the NFL over the previous 2 weeks, by the way, behind Mike Thomas of New Orleans and Jarvis Landry of the Miami Dolphins. So that's good company. If you're in the company of those 2 guys, that means you're establishing yourself as a legitimate receiver at this level.
Sims in motion on 2nd down from the 27-yard line. To the near side for Wright. And it was read nicely by the Browns. Kirksey, 2nd on the team in tackles, able to make the tackle there for no gain.
Did you see Nassib flying up the field there?
Yeah. Right here. Nassib gets up. You can see it's just hard. You know, Trubisky does a nice job getting it around him. Nassib, 6'7", got a huge wingspan. But this is a critical juncture for the Bengals. I mean, for the Browns defense. They have got to stop them here, because you can't allow them to get points. You've almost got to pitch a shutout now against this Bears offense. If they get any closer, obviously it's going to be field goal position. And this is critical. The Browns stop the Bears right where they are.
Critical 3rd down. Trubisky lets it fly, and he's got a first down to Cohen, who just kept pinballing off the defenders.
Cohen caught this ball and didn't have his feet touch the ground. It didn't look like for 5 yards.
Well, Trubisky had a much easier throw the other side to Kendall Wright, who was basically uncovered. He stuck this one in there on Tariq Cohen under pressure.
It only looked like a volleyball when he caught that football.
Hey, it looks like they're short guys. It's going to be 4th down and less than a yard. John Fox, though, is going to challenge it.
Yeah, and that's a good challenge by John Fox. You could see it coming, because it did look like he had enough.
Chicago is challenged that the receiver made the first down.
All right, so Terry McAulay will take a look at the tablet. I always think that these spots are the most difficult things to challenge in the National Football League. But you want to talk about light in the air? Look at him just bounce.
He doesn't land on his shoulder until he gets well past.
Yeah, I think they should mark it close to the 14-yard line.
Yeah, I think he's well past. Oh yeah, this is the yard line right there, and he landed, if not well past it. He's not down. There, he's down, and that's clear up here.
I would agree with you on that one, Task. I think that is a first down.
I think that's a great challenge by John Fox, and I used to drive. That's the one thing used to drive me crazy. I played in an era where they didn't have replay, and when they miss stuff like that, it's a crucial miss.
You want to know a way that they would have for sure got the first down? Watch this. Right here, we'll go back and look at this all 22 again. And you can see, watch Kendall Wright up here. He comes across. Look how he is wide open underneath there. No one even covering him. He could have caught that ball and turned up and taken a lot less of a shot than Tariq Cohen did.
Well,
But there's no doubt
see,
that ball should be another half a yard further.
That ball should be up here.
No, don't forget, too, Terry McAuley's also looking at the clock to make sure that that is situated properly as well, with 4:47 to play.
Yeah, they'll wind the clock because it wouldn't have stopped normally on that play.
See, 5:17. Cohen is not down, past the first down marker there, and then is down.
Yeah, the elbow or the hip on the left side would probably hit first.
I would agree.
Yeah, we saw it from the head-on view that he is not down until his body hits that we see right there.
Here we go.
So you watch,
After review, the runner is down just beyond the 15-yard line. We'll place the ball there and measure for a first down.
All right, so they'll place the ball. It should be a first down. Now, it depends on where they're going to spot it.
Yeah, I don't like the inexact thing of just beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I still think
even
that
there,
spot is off.
I think that's less than the spot.
I agree. Should be another football.
I think if you're
I think so too.
If you're John Fox,
I think it should have been up here.
Yeah.
Boy, they're short.
I disagree. Wow.
That is a terrible spot.
I think they missed it on both counts.
Chicago is charged with their first timeout.
No, they did. They moved the spot.
No. On a spot, you have to get the first down. Even if they move the spot, if it doesn't get the first down, you're still charged with the challenge.
Correct.
Because then you'd have guys, doing that all the time if they didn't lose it.
I got you.
And I agree. You can go for it here. You're 10 points up, second half.
You've already had Nugent miss an extra point.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting what they ask Mitch Trubisky to do on a 4th and short. I think you hand it off to Howard. I think everybody in the stadium knows that. But this is a Browns defense that's pretty good up front. We'll see. Interesting play call here.
3 tight ends on the right side of the offensive line. Now 1 in motion. And it goes to Howard. Flags come in. And Howard bounces for a first down and much more. Nacua makes the tackle, but we'll see who the penalty is against.
It's going to be on Cleveland.
Defense number 22. Penalties decline. First down.
So Jabril Peppers is offside. We did say that he's...
Oh, yeah, look, he's clearly offsides right there.
Wow. That's just not, that's a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
That wasn't even close.
Peppers was told this week that he would play in that spot more this week, up. That's where Greg Williams told us last week he'd like him to go. Trubisky is now out as a receiver. We saw this last week with Cohen as the Wildcat. And Cohen will keep it himself, and Cohen squirts inside the 5.
Yeah, you do that because you leave Trubisky in because then the defense doesn't switch out their personnel. You get the personnel package defensively that you like if you're Chicago, and then you throw the Wildcat at him with the quarterback out of the equation. And
because he pulls somebody out of there with him.
Right. They have to cover him, and that makes the numbers just perfect to run that Wildcat. And well run by Cohen.
Pretty good job by Cleveland holding just 3-yard gain.
Yeah, 2nd and goal from the 4. Cohen is now out as a receiver. Trips to the far side. 2 receivers to the bottom. Trubisky's going to keep it himself. This is what we saw last week with Baltimore. And Trubisky bounces it to the end zone. A 4-yard touchdown run for the rookie. Well, it's a little standard on a day like this, Snow Angels, but why not? Chicago on top, 19-3. They have 3 rushing touchdowns today.
Well, there's no question. He was never going to throw it. It was a called quarterback draw. Second one we've seen today. This one ends up into the end zone. The Browns gave up one to Joe Flacco, as you mentioned, Steve Berline, last week. So the Chicago Bears are going to make sure the Browns have it buttoned up, and on that play they did not.
Here's Nugent on for the point after, and it is good. There is a flag sitting on the field, though, as Trubisky on this quarterback keeper is able to roll over top of Coley, and here's the call on the penalty from Terry McAuley. Looks like Nugent staying on the field, but it may be just a kickoff.
Holding. Defense number 94. The point's good. 5-yard penalty will be assessed on the kickoff. Timeout.
Well, all around the city of Chicago and the suburbs, you are seeing kids running outside to do some snow angels, and some adults as well. See, that fan came from Mentor, Ohio to see Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky is an Ohio guy, just as DeShone Kizer is. In fact, Trubisky was Mr. Everything in Ohio in high school football. And Kizer said that he used to watch him when he was in high school. That ball spins out of the back of the end zone. All right, so Kaiser's made some mistakes today, but overall the Browns as a team have made some collective mistakes today.
Well, where do you start? DeShone Kizer probably took points off the board in the first half with that ill-advised throw down the field, and then they come out first play of the second half. Carl Nassib lines up offside and negates a touchdown by Myles Garrett, and then when they have a chance to make a play, the last drive before the Bears put the last touchdown on the board, Josh Gordon had a chance to make a play. He's their big play guy. Ball goes off his fingers. They punt the ball to Chicago. Chicago's then scored. That's the way it works when you're wearing a Cleveland Browns uniform these days.
Yeah, that's at least the last couple of years the way it's been going. On first down, Kizer the throw. Pressure's coming. Dumps it off to Duke Johnson. Trevathan missed the tackle, and Johnson will sprint up toward midfield before he is upended and thrown down by Bryce Callahan. That is a 28-yard run.
Yeah, this is well set up. Kizer takes it patient, looks to the left, then retreats a little more. And if Trevathan makes that tackle right there, it's all over. But Duke Johnson avoids it, gets all the way down to the secondary. Great upend by Callahan. Crowd liked it, but that's a little too late to help the Bears out.
Yeah, officially, they give him 29 yards to the 46. Johnson, 5th reception of 25 yards or more this year. We asked him last week about being a receiver. He said, you know, I kind of want to be moved to wide receiver at some point. And Crowell can't hang on. Trevathan whacks him down to the ground. Tonight, the Catholic monks who have been protecting ancient religious works from ISIS. It's a survival story. Tonight, 60 Minutes, only CBS.
Did you see the frustration from Crowell there when he got up? He was looking at DeShone Kizer the second time today. DeShone Kizer's throwing him a ball and it's kind of laid out Crowell. And he's saying, come on, man. What do you got to do that to? Not laughing, though.
Kizer 9 of 20 for 114 yards. He'll throw for the 21st time to Val underneath at the 41, but well shy of the first down. Eddie Jackson makes the tackle. Would you guys think about switching quarterbacks at this point, or is it just too late?
Why?
Okay.
I mean, why?
I think, yeah, I'm with you. They got DeShone Kizer, took the reps. He's the guy that got ready to play. No question, but he isn't. You know what you're dealing with. He's not a guy who's playing worse than you expected him to. You'd like to play him a little better, no question, to have him play a little better. He's made some of the same mistakes, but this is the quarterback you drafted, and he's playing about like he has all year.
Bears showing blitz. Kizer underneath to Johnson, and Johnson's got the first down, and he hangs onto the football to the 25-yard line.
Really nice job by DeShone Kizer, giving time, feeling the pressure, knowing where his safety valve is right there. Duke Johnson right there with that 4th catch, by the way. He ties Greg Pruitt.
Yep.
65 catches on the season. That's the most ever. Tied for the most ever by a running back for the Cleveland Browns. The next catch will break the record. You see Kizer taking a hit, just another day at the office.
That's exactly what he's supposed to do, though. Let that guy come, give his back a chance to break open and accept the hit while he's delivering the ball. That's an NFL quarterback.
That's Gordon in motion. The handoff to Johnson. Johnson running left, trying to find a blocker or two, and he's shoved out of bounds.
I love it, dude!
By Mukamara. Mukamara just said, I love you, Duke, as he knocked him out of bounds.
Yeah, it's a funny way of showing it.
Gain of 7 yards. So Kizer 11 of 22. Trubisky started 5 of 5 and is 8 of 13 since. He's also run the ball for 44 yards and a touchdown. Under a minute to play in the third quarter. Red zone is where Kizer's had a lot of trouble this year as he throws that one away.
That was a double move again called up top. They wanted to try and get Coleman on the double move, and right there, DeShone Kizer did make the proper decision. Didn't force the football just because it was called and threw it away. Gave his team a chance to live to see another day there.
Part of what Hugh Jackson talked to him about this week. Hugh Jackson said last week that he was going to look at the film and try to decide whether Kizer would start today. He said it was only because I wanted to look at his eyes and make sure that he was not beaten down. Facing a 3rd down and 3. Njoku is by himself on the near side. Kaiser's looking to the far side, and he is grabbed as he throws. It's complete to Higgins, and Higgins is still on his feet. He got up because the whistle didn't blow, and he fumbles into the end zone. Amukamara picks it up, and he's running around in the end zone, and he better get out. And another red zone turnover for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, DeShone Kizer did everything he could do on this play. Under a lot of pressure, finds Higgins, who does a spectacular job weaving his way down inside the 5-yard line.
Looks like it's Trevathan.
And you talk about the Cleveland Browns. We spoke about it. Somebody's got to make a play. Somebody's got to do something. But here's the thing. The Cleveland Brown guys, all of a sudden, everybody thinks they got to win it on every play. You try and do too much if you're Higgins. Yeah, that was already a great play. They had the 1st down. He got up and got a little extra yards, but then all of a sudden you forget to protect it. And the Bears are playing too.
That was a big hit by Eddie Goldman.
The Bears are trying to make a play as well.
Yeah, he and Trevathan were part of that hit. Trevathan went ripping. Goldman went hitting.
Yeah, Goldman is the one that knocked that ball out of there. Higgins feeling terrible on that side. Get in line. He's just another guy on the sideline feeling responsible for making a mistake.
Trubisky to throw on 1st down. And a diving grab by Inman. That'll be 1st down yardage, a gain of 12 in front of Jason McCourty. And that'll be the final play of the 3rd quarter. The clock winding down. Chicago on top of Cleveland 20-3. We'll return to Chicago after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Quarter points has given the Bears a 20-3 lead as we begin the 4th quarter here in Chicago. 10th giveaway in the red zone, which leads the National Football League. Higgins had the ball knocked and stripped by Goldman and Trevathan. From the 32-yard line on 1st down. High formation. Trubisky will keep on throwing and throws it low for Burton. Trubisky, this is the first time we've seen him in person. I think he's looked pretty good today at times.
Oh, absolutely. He's made great plays. This screen pass, you saw him pump hard to his left, come back to his right. All that. He's been as accurate as you really needed him to be. He has made some really nice throws, ripped it down the field. And if you're going to be a quarterback in Chicago, show a little toughness. Busted into the end zone on an inside run quarterback draw. That guy really, I think he really has given this organization a chance. They're moving on from the quarterback spot. They've got their guy, and he's shown it week in, week out. You think the upside of Mitch Trubisky, and you said, he's less than he hasn't even had 24 starts.
Amazing. Myles Garrett being helped off. Apparently he got poked in the eye on that last play. And take a look.
Right here.
Oh yeah, right there. So the helmet go up. Myles Garrett, the 1st overall pick out of Texas A&M. Trubisky, the 2nd overall pick out of North Carolina. DeShone Kizer said to us yesterday when we were talking about Trubisky, because he watched him when he was in high school, he said, I was really impressed. I thought he was amazing. And then I thought, why is he going to North Carolina? Why isn't he going to a bigger school for football?
He was Mr. Ohio for the state of Ohio, obviously. And then it was kind of interesting to see Kizer react. You could tell he was a fan of Trubisky. 1 year behind him, but he looked up to him as a guy that, really was well respected and well known in the state of Ohio for a high school quarterback.
They'd never really met him until they got on draft day. They actually got to spend like a half an hour together, and he said, wow, we really hit it off. A couple of Ohio kids, they said, wow, it'd be nice to get to know the guy. We had a lot of chemistry on that draft day.
3rd down and 7. Trubisky throws it high, incomplete. And it'll be 4th down. The Bears will give it back to the Browns.
Well, one last note on Trubisky. I think the thing that I look for in a young quarterback is a presence about him. And when we're talking with him, it's a little intimidating for a young guy to get used to that situation, get comfortable with it. But you could tell he has a lot of the qualities with the way he carries himself. And he looks at it and says, you know what? Everybody's talking about how good it's been the last few weeks. He's like, I still don't feel like I have complete control out there. I know I've got a long way to go. He admits he has a lot of work to do.
Total ownership of all the bad things he's done on the field, as well as the success.
Fair catch called by Jabril Peppers. The Browns go back to work from the 28-yard line when we come back.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Garmin. Get a Garmin smartwatch and beat yesterday. And by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Well, Frosty has made an appearance here in Chicago. So back in Week 8 against the New Orleans Saints, Zach Miller had a horrific injury. And this is Miller at practice this week in front of his teammates, walking after surgery. He's going to need another surgery coming up. And how about this today? He walked out. Everybody had some trepidation because he was walking out in the snow. But we saw him the other day at practice. His teammates were really happy to see him.
So good to see that. I mean, such a horrific injury. You know, you don't know how bad it could have been. Really, I don't think any of us realize how serious that was. But to see him up and around is fantastic.
Well, Kaiser goes down. Sam Acho and Akeem Hicks were both in for the sack. And it's interesting because Hicks told us the other day, the guy that's really stepped it up this year defensively has been Sam Acho.
Yeah. You saw what Spencer Drango just gave up 5 yards of straight ahead rush to Sam Acho right there on that play. It's hard to hunker down and stop him when he's got 5 yards of momentum going on you.
40 sacks overall. Acho, the veteran, 7th-year pro out of Texas. 2.5 sacks now. It'll be second down at 14. Pressure's coming again. Kaiser steps up. Kaiser trying to avoid it. Kaiser tripped up and goes down. Roy Robertson Harris is the one who got the ankle and slowed him to the ground.
Yeah, this is the point of the game where it's going to be Acho's going to come out, spin out, chase him back, and then from the inside they chase him down. But that's what Kaiser's going to have to do. If he's doesn't see anybody, it's better to pull it down and run and end up. You got to end the play with the ball in your possession, and that's what Kaiser did. At least they can line up on a 3rd and 11 and have the ball instead of trying to make something happen and it going the other way.
Under 13 minutes to play in the 4th quarter. On 3rd down, Kaiser to throw. Pocket collapses, throws, passes complete to Coleman, and Kwiatkowski rings him up. I was impressed with him last week watching that Lions game.
Yeah, that Kwiatkowski is really, you can look there. I mean, this is a guy that knows how to tackle in the NFL. Covers a lot of ground coming over there late on that pass.
He's worked his way back into the starting lineup. He missed 6 weeks due to a torn pectoral muscle, and just the last couple weeks has really played himself back into that starting role.
Yeah, he wasn't out of the lineup for a pulled leg muscle. I know that because that guy can scoot.
Here's Colquitt on the punt again. Cohen back deep to receive, standing inside the 30-yard line. And they kick away from Cohen, not a surprise, as the ball bounces at the 24 and then inside the 20-yard line before it just dies. 11:43 to play in the 4th quarter. Colquitt kept it away from Cohen, but not the Bears. Back here in Chicago, where the Bears hold a 20-3 lead over the Browns. The Browns 0-14. Last year on Christmas Eve, they picked up their first and only victory against the San Diego Chargers. DeShone Kizer today is 13 of 25 for 153 yards.
Well, if they want to keep that Christmas Eve record perfect,
got to get rolling here.
They better get started about now.
Yeah. Well, their defense has still been solid here this afternoon. Offset out formation behind Trubisky. Here's Howard. And Howard is stopped at the line of scrimmage and pushed back. Ogunjobi, who's had a decent day, Next Sunday, it's the final games of the regular season on the final day of the year, and it could be do or die for some teams depending on what happens today. Ring in the new year with a great doubleheader and join JB, Phil, Coach Nate, and Boomer for the complete playoff picture in the NFL today at 12 Eastern on CBS. Patriots and the Bills playing today. That's a big one when it comes to the playoff picture. Titans playing the Rams. On second down, it's Howard again. And not a whole lot there. Again, this run defense for the Browns, solid, third in the AFC. And here's the AFC playoff picture. Buffalo at 8-6. Outside looking in right now with Baltimore winning yesterday and Tennessee, the other wild card team. Kansas City playing right now for an opportunity to wrap up the AFC West. Patriots are so dangerous. The Steelers, despite the loss last week, so dangerous. The Ravens so dangerous.
They're not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch. Felt like they should have beat Pittsburgh a few weeks back and won another piece of them.
Here comes the blitz by the Browns. Garrett back in, chasing Trubisky along with Burgess. And Burgess takes him down inside the 15-yard line.
This is great presence by Mitchell Trubisky right here. This was a screen pass set to go to left side. We see a flag on the field. Picked it up okay, but Trubisky saw that the screen pass to his left was not going to be there. So instead of panicking and trying to make something out of nothing, he says, you know, we're winning this ball game. I'll just get what I can get down, and we'll punt the ball, we'll get out of there. Just
that takes such presence of mind, and you almost have to fight yourself to make something happen in that spot in the third and long. Such a smart, disciplined play. Just slide in, punt the football away, and let your defense get it back for you. That's hard to do for a young quarterback, as we've seen.
Comes Peppers for the 45, assessing. And there's a flag as Peppers bounces to the outside and gets into Chicago territory. He fumbled the football. I believe Cleveland has recovered it. And again, there is a penalty flag down at the 45 of Cleveland. That usually means an illegal block. There's also one back in the other end.
Two fouls during the kick on the receiving team. Holding number 80, that penalty's declined. Holding number 10. 10-yard penalty from the end of the kick. First down, timeout.
Well, it's Sammy Coates' holding penalty to decide to take. Let's see if Hugh Jackson's offense can get something rolling when we get back.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Walmart. Rock this Christmas with Walmart. Cricket Wireless, something to smile about. And by Acura Season Up Performance Event.
Well, our crew has done an outstanding job today considering the conditions. I mean, look inside the truck. I mean, they've got the Yule log going. Yeah,
hey.
That's a shot right there because our camera crew, they've been unbelievable outside today. I mean, they were out early while the snow was falling hard. Meanwhile, Scott Brandwine, our producer, and Chris Svensson, our director, they are warm and toasty in the truck. Yep. Johnson in the backfield. It'll be first and 10. 9:11 to play in the fourth quarter. Bears with a commanding 17-point lead. Kaiser underneath to Johnson, and Johnson tracked down from behind by Jonathan Bullard. It's a gain of 5. All right, so John Dorsey took over recently as the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. We spoke with him last week before the ball game. He's a guy that obviously has a pedigree, as you can see there. The Kansas City GM from 2013 to the after the draft last year. He's excited about taking over the Cleveland Browns. As that ball is deflected and nearly intercepted.
No
Kyle
question.
Fuller breaks it up.
As a GM, you want to come to Cleveland with all the draft capital that they really do have to work with. 2 first-round picks that are going to be top 5 picks.
Looks that way, yep.
And then 3 second-round picks, 2 picks each in the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And that's just, it's exactly where you want to be as a franchise moving forward. Plus, the first guaranteed with a loss or tie by the New York Giants, this team's going to have the #1 overall pick. So the question, and we talked to Hugh Jackson about it too. He had an interesting thought. They hired John Dorsey. He said, hey, and they spoke, and he said, we see things the same way. And it was interesting what he said about Dorsey.
Said we're attached at the hip right now.
Yeah, he said, and everybody says, well, when you get a new GM, he's going to want his own head coach. And Hugh Jackson's take on it was, you know what, we got one more guy in our building that is excited about us turning it around. And that's the more people you have inside your building doing that, the better it is for everybody. So I think Hugh Jackson really welcomed it.
8:17 left to play. It is a first down to Duke Johnson, who has 6 receptions for 72 yards. Kaiser to throw again. Near side for Gordon. Can't hang on. Fuller there again defensively. Well, before last week's game, we talked to Duke Johnson about the number of receptions that he has this year. We asked him, did you think you'd be this effective as a receiver out of the backfield coming out of college? He said, yeah. He said, in reality, I kind of hope they move me to receiver at some point. Well,
they just got 67.
Yeah, Stinger talked about before, 67th reception this season, and it's a record for the Browns.
Well, I'll tell you something else. There's only 5 running backs in the history of the game that have more catches in the first 3 years than Duke Johnson. I'll give you that list after we see what happens here.
Kaiser tried to drop it off to Crowell.
Well, we're going to do a promo first.
It'll be all wrapped into.
Okay, go ahead.
Coming up on the State Farm postgame show, join JB, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach Cowler for all the latest NFL scores and highlights. That's all coming up on the State Farm postgame show. Steve Barline, give us that list.
All right, here's the list. The 5 guys that have more, only 5 guys in history of the NFL that have more catches through 3 years than Duke Johnson. LaDainian Tomlinson, Reggie Bush, Roger Craig, Herschel Walker,
wow,
and then, of course, the great Ted Brown out of Minnesota from 1979-1981.
The great Ted Brown.
But 4 of those names are names you know for sure. He's in great company. Ted Brown obviously was a great player as well.
Kaiser throws high to Coleman, incompletes. It'll be 4th down.
And no change, and now they will send the punt team on. There was a hesitation there, but you got to punt it away.
Well, this has turned out to be another frustrating day for the Browns and their fans. I mean, you look at the score, yes, but there's so many other facets that have made it frustrating here today.
When we talk about DeShone Kizer and the frustrations he's had this year, we all know he has the physical ability to do this. But let's look at what's happened today on the field. There just haven't been a lot of guys running free around on the football field either, you know, so that makes it difficult.
Cohen calls for the fair catch. The Bears get it back when we return to Chicago. Well, back here in Chicago where the Bears are on top 20-3 with the football. Not great field position, but they do have a 17-point lead with 7:50 to play in the 4th quarter. Try to run out the time if they can. Brown showing blitz. McCourty's coming in. They hand it off to Howard, though, and Howard having a little trouble finding some daylight. Garrett takes him down. Gain of 1. All right, so since the Browns last had a Sunday win, they won last year on a Saturday. Cavaliers have made 2 NBA Finals, won the 2016 championship. Indians were in the World Series. There have been 3 Star Wars movies released, much to the delight of Steve Tasker, and 6 iPhones released as well.
That kind of sums it all up.
They lost last 31 games on Sunday.
At this point in history, Cleveland Brown fans have got to be about 95% scar tissue.
Here's Howard again.
I'll tell you what, and we did a Cleveland game. You got to tip your hat to their fans.
I would agree with that.
You really do, because they are hanging in there with this team.
First charge timeout, Cleveland.
Cleveland with a timeout. We'll be back in 30 seconds after this from State Farm.
You're actually right next door to your friend.
Correction, best friend. Let's go.
Are you taking all your tiny shampoos?
I'm like a bird, I only fly away. You look rough, bro.
State Farm knows it's more than a house. It's home. So why not give it the protection it deserves?
Play something relaxing.
Talk to a State Farm agent today.
Browns use the timeout. Hugh Jackson has 2 left. He's trying to get the football back and continue whatever development he would like to see this last game and half a quarter. The Bears facing a 3rd down and 9. They insert Benny Cunningham, who's had 2 huge screen passes today. Brown shows once again. Here comes Peppers. The pass to the near side is incomplete. Intended for Inman. And McCourty was there to break it up.
That was very well done by Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, he did not look flustered whatsoever. He stood strong in there. Knew pressure was coming, and he got rid of the ball accurate on time, right where he needed to.
That's a first down.
That should have been a first down.
Well, I tell you, we talked a lot about it. These two quarterbacks, first draft. This is the first year in the league. Both of them are rookies. Both of them are developing. And I'll tell you what, Mitch Trubisky has played well today. Very well today. I mean, his statistics will never show that, because it's a tough day and all the things that are going on. But 14 for 22 at this point, he has looked really good.
Here's Jabril Peppers, and Peppers gets inside Chicago territory to the 49. All right, so we've talked a lot about the AFC playoff picture. How about the NFC playoff picture? Carolina and Atlanta are the two wild card teams right now. Carolina wins today. They've assured themselves a playoff spot.
Carolina's not going anywhere.
No. I've seen the Rams in person this year. I have been so impressed with not only their offense, but their defense is excellent.
Let me tell you something. That whole NFC, you start at the top and just go right on down that list. They are playing football. They all are bringing it both sides, offensively and defensively. The Saints, the Vikings, the Eagles, they're all doing it.
Case Keenum looked really good last night against the Packers. Weiser's throw to the near side incomplete. He threw it short to Coleman. It'll be second down and 10.
Yeah, Kaiser throwing that one into the dirt. He didn't want to try and lift it over the top of Houston, who was standing between him and Coleman, so he just dumped it off. Smart play.
And I know it might be a stretch, but there is 6:38 to play. They have good field position. If they're able to pump a score in here, I know they're down 17, but that's what they have to think at this point.
Yeah, get a touchdown and then worry about the next thought process after that. Get a touchdown.
Let's go over 44. Yeah, 44.
He points out Kwiatkowski as the Mike linebacker. Here he comes. Underneath to Gordon. And Gordon to the 39 as the Bears try to strip it away, and he's got a first down.
That was very positive right there. Not that it's a huge deal that he gets something right, but DeShone Kizer right there, complete control, knew where to turn the protection to. They picked it up nice and clean. He goes to Josh Gordon, made the right read, first down. That's a good, solid progression right there. And he can do it, obviously.
Gain of 11 yards. He's being pressured from behind by Acho, but dumps it off to Duke Johnson. Johnson gets inside the 30-yard line. Fuller and Trevathan.
And that's a play too. And you start. This is exactly how you think. Two good plays, you stack them together, and now it's a 2nd and 1, and you're moving into Bears territory. And that's a play that he had to make with his presence because Durango got beat on the outside. He had to move away from the rush off his left side and make a play, and he did. So one play after another is how you get better.
There's Johnson now runs the ball. A flag comes in as Johnson gets inside the 20. I think they're going to hit Sean Coleman.
Offense number 72. 10-yard penalty, second down.
Just
tough to hide 6'7", 310.
It is, but you just cannot do this. You finally get a little rhythm going. Sure, it's late in the ball game.
I don't know.
He was going down.
Yeah.
It's one of those calls. You could call that probably every play if you wanted to. He's sitting there saying, "What do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
The guy's going down. I just jumped on top of him.
I thought that was a poor call.
But what I'm liking out here right now is you find out a lot about what a kid's made of in this situation. The quarterback leader, he's competing. He's trying to keep his team engaged. Hey guys, let's keep it going. Let's get a touchdown. Do what we can do to get this thing back and make some progress.
Using a 2nd down at 11 underneath to Crowell. But Crowell's had some tough passes today. He really has.
Yeah, there's nothing he can do with that. The ball gets there at the same time, at the exact same time as Timu gets there. And there's nothing. The ball is high and inside. He's got to reach back to get it, and before he can even pull it in, he's got a guy wrapped around him.
He's probably about ready to tell DeShone,
that's enough of that.
Not to throw it to me.
That's enough of that.
Don't throw me the ball.
I was thinking the same thing.
Just hand it to me.
Hey, Louie.
Under 4:40 to play now in the fourth quarter.
It's 4-down territory, so you don't have to get it all on this play.
Pocket collapses. Kaiser runs. It's going to be a tough throw across his body, and he's going to be shoved out of bounds by Callahan. He did get a couple back.
Down.
It does look like they're going to go for it on fourth down. They have to. They're down 20-3.
Hicks stayed on the ground. He couldn't make his way off the field. Asked for help.
Boy, what a pleasant guy Akeem Hicks is to talk to. We'll be back in 30 seconds after this. There's Akeem Hicks, who is up and walking gingerly off the field. The 6th-year pro out of Regina. Take a look at his cleat. He's on the left, number 96. Looks like he got stepped on.
Yeah. Stepped on by his teammate.
What a year he's had. We asked him the other day if he was upset about not getting selected to the Pro Bowl. He said, well, that died down after the first day. And he said, listen, it's not the first time that I've been snubbed for the Pro Bowl. He has a great story. You know, he was at junior college, then went to LSU.
Hey, Louie!
From LSU went to Regina in Canada. And now it's fourth down for the Browns. 12 successful conversions on fourth down. Here comes Kwiatkowski, and the pass is intercepted by Callahan. And Callahan is trying to Crowell, and he's taken down inside Browns territory.
What can we do? You know, you're standing in there, you took a hit, trying to make a play on 4th and 11. You can't fault anybody on that.
See, Kwiatkowski comes in and grabs him. It happens just that fast. Kwiatkowski untouched. He sees him, can't get away from him, and then flings it out there, and that's happened all too many times to DeShone Kizer.
But you got to throw it somewhere in that situation.
Yeah, you got to do it.
4th and 11, you're down.
That's a different situation than on a 2nd and short in the red zone.
21 interceptions this year for Kizer. 3rd turnover for the Browns. Howard in the backfield. Off the play fake, Trubisky throws to the right short of his intended receiver. He was under pressure by Nate Orchard.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You can kind of see the mindset of Trubisky as a young quarterback. He's just saying, listen, I don't care about statistics or anything. Just don't do anything that's not given to us.
But you know what I don't understand? Chicago's up 20-3. Why would you call a pass play right there? You know, you just want to get the game over with. Everybody wants to get in, take a warm shower, you know, kind of get thawed out a little bit. That stops the clock, and not a big deal. Just don't know why it was called.
Oh my goodness, that's like Burton in the backfield.
False start.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Number 46. 5-yard penalty. 2nd down.
For me, one of the reasons you do it, give Trubisky more reps running a regular offense. I mean, I get the idea, and let the guy show how much he's learned. No question that the bank, he's going to see a lot of pressure from the Browns. They're going to keep playing hard, and every rep is important for a guy like Trubisky.
But at the same time, he can run a bootleg in his sleep, and the way they came with that blitz last time, if Trubisky wasn't as athletic and aware as he is, he could have turned right around and taken a shot, and the ball's up in the air all of a sudden, and maybe they get a fumble and go for a touchdown. I just think if you're going to
think like that, though, bro, put him on a bench.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's situational football.
2nd down. The pitch goes to Howard. Howard steps up and inside the 40 to the 36. Burgess drags him down.
Yeah.
And he got a lot back on that one.
One of the things I noticed, we talked to Howard, and what a we said it in the open. You got a rookie quarterback in Mitch Trubisky that looks like the real deal. And then you got this guy who, when I watched him, you read about him and we talk about him, you watch him on games like this. But then when I saw him in person on Friday, we were watching practice, and he came in and talked to us. He's got some size. This is a guy that's going to be a durable, inside the numbers guy who can play a running back position with some physicality for a long time in this league. I really love the way he stands out on a football field. They're set up really well in their backfield.
Yeah, because they have Cohen, who's a little different. He was the man in motion. Here's Howard again, and Howard's got the 1st down and smartly slides down to keep the clock going.
Yeah, seeing a 2nd-year back doing that, really smart. You got Trubisky making some great headsy plays, even conservative plays. And this is a Bears team with John Fox that mentally they're prepared and they're all there. Their lights are on and they're always thinking about this game. And I think it's really promising for this Bears organization.
I think John Fox is licking his chops, hoping again, people speculating on his future, hoping he gets a shot at next year to show what he believes is a team that's getting pretty close to being very, very competitive.
We asked him about the talk of maybe having somebody replace him, and he said, I can't think about that. He goes, I've been through it so many times before. Here's Howard again, and Howard back to the line of scrimmage.
When you become a coach, you kind of sign up for that.
Coming up on the State Farm postgame show, join JV, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach Cower for all the latest NFL scores and highlights. That's all coming up on the State Farm postgame show.
Talk about coaches. John Fox wakes up, his family, and they had a parade. They had a list of like 16 or 17 coaches that were in line to take his job. And it's funny to listen to as guys like us, but these are guys that are working hard to win games, and it's a professional atmosphere over there.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by FedEx. Sign up for FedEx Delivery Manager. And by Bud Light, brewed to be enjoyed responsibly.
Well, I think the smartest people out in the stands today are the ones that are bundled up, not the ones that are trying to show off their guns in the stands. 20-3, the score. Chicago on top. 2 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. It's snowing most of the day. It hasn't really been a huge factor. They've done a good job clearing the field. Howard's been a factor on this drive as he runs for about 4 yards. There's a flag from the outside.
Offense for 65. 10-yard penalty. Second down.
That's Whitehair, who's playing guard today. Whitehair out of Kansas State. They drafted as a guard, and John Fox said he just felt more comfortable with him as a center because of his hands and his footwork and his size, but out of necessity, he's playing guard today because of the injury to Josh Sitton and Tom Compton. Just the fourth penalty against the Chicago Bears. Bears will improve to 5-10 with 1 game left. The Browns will fall to 0-15.
Double. Hey, 4.
To Howard again to the right side. And he'll be stopped after 2 yards as Christian Kirksey makes the tackle. Now the clock will wind, under 1:40 to play. Hugh Jackson, his team has 2 timeouts, but he realizes they're down by 17, so it's just closing up shop now.
Yeah, they're down to one last shot at avoiding the goose egg next week.
Well, and next week is not an easy task, obviously.
It's not. No,
it's a game that's going to mean something to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep. It's in Pittsburgh, I believe.
It is in Pittsburgh, yep. Today is the final home game for the Bears. Here's Howard again. He'll drop down. He lost 4 on the play. So we're under 1 minute to play. It'll be 4th down. And there'll be bonus coverage coming up between the Chargers and the Jets once this one comes to a close. Chargers trying to get over the 500 mark, keep hope alive going into the final week of the season.
Yeah, the Chargers need a lot of help. Baltimore winning last night didn't help them. But the Bills losing today helps.
Sure it does.
San Diego.
Yep. 30 seconds and counting to play. O'Donnell will let this one wind down as far as he can before he boots it. The Browns will have time for probably 1 play, and that's it here in the fourth quarter. Now a timeout call. John Fox
Second charge timeout.
burns his second timeout.
30-second timeout.
So 13 seconds left. Well, for Mitchell Trubisky and the rest of the Bears, it'll be a good Christmas after winning today, 20-3.
Yeah, not a whole lot to be excited about for the Bears this year, but a whole lot more than what the Cleveland Browns have had going for them today. John Fox, he told us when we were leaving his office Friday. He said, you know, I hope we win so I have a good Christmas.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
He's like, you know, we're not making the playoffs. Obviously, it's not going to happen this year, but I got to deal with a whole house full of people that are coming in.
I don't want to fake it. Well, and the Bears will finish off a sweep of the AFC North with his victory today. As O'Donnell lets this one go, Peppers will not be able to track it down as it bounces inside the 5 and goes out inside the 1.
There's a nail right there.
That is the kind of year it's been for the Cleveland Browns, with 5 seconds left to play here in the fourth quarter. Look at O'Donnell. It's the best kick of the day. This is what happened last week for Jabril Peppers. He does the right thing, letting the ball go over his head, but they just haven't been able to get their bounce.
They have not gotten many bounces in any figurative or literal form this year.
Well, this will be the final play of the afternoon. As Kaiser working from his end zone.
Can't take a knee.
Cannot take a knee. Gonna have to hand it off to Johnson. Or his fullback. He gives it to Johnson, and Johnson runs up the middle, and that will do it. Final score, it's the Bears 20 and the Browns 3. Coming up next, it'll be the State Farm postgame show. So for Steve Berline and Steve Tasker, this is Tom McCarthy saying so long from Chicago. We'll take it back to New York for all the scores and highlights right after this.